Hi, you right? How you going? Today we're going to be looking at rates. Now, as we talked about in the previous lessons with ratios, a ratio is a comparison of the same kind of measurement. So if you got length and length, or weight and weight, or something like that, you're comparing the same thing. You might measure it in slightly different units, but you're still measuring the same kind of measurement, and that's how we compare those using a ratio. A rate is when you compare two different kinds of measurements, things that use completely different units. So, for example, distance and time. You can't measure those two different quantities the same way. Or you might have money and time, or you might have liters per dollar, or dollars per liter, or whatever it is. There are lots of different units that you can use to come up with a rate. Now we write rates as a fraction. So the word per, when we say kilometers per hour, for example, is just shorthand for divided by. So essentially, to find a rate, we just take one quantity and divide it by the other quantity, and we get the rate with the units written as something per something. So kilometers per hour. Okay, so let's do this first example here. Express each the following as a rate. So a car travels 420 kilometers in 3.5 hours. So all we need to do is divide the first quantity by the second quantity, and we'll then have our answer as a rate. So if I go 420 divided by 3.5, I then get this answer 120. So my answer is 120, and then my units are kilometers per hour. So our units now have to have that forward slash in it, kilometers per hour, to show that we've now got a rate. It's not just a measurement, it's a comparison of two different kinds of measurements. For part B here, we have $71.25 for 9.5 hours. Again, we're just going to divide the first quantity by the second. So we get 71.25 divided by 9.5. And that gives us our answer $7.50 per hour. Now, the exception when we write our units is for money. The dollar sign goes in front to the left of the amount of money, and then we write per hour or per whatever. Everything else, the units will be after the quantity, as we saw in that first example. Okay, so finding a rate, you're just dividing two quantities that have different units. Don't forget to write your units after you've done it. Let's look at these questions here. So a car travels for 60 kilometers for 2 hours and 17 minutes. How far does it travel? So in this instance, we have a rate, 60 kilometers per hour, and then we have a time. Now, what I want you to think about is if we had, for example, kilometers per hour, and then we're multiplying it by the number of hours, we should see that these units will cancel out and we'll just be left with kilometers. So if you want to find the distance, you just use the speed, which is distance over time, and then times it by the time that you travel, and then you're just left with the distance. You can see here that the time units will cancel each other out and just leave you with distance. Okay, so for part A, I'm going to do 60 times. Now, I'll show you a little trick that you can do in your calculator. So 2 hours and 17 minutes. You can use the degrees, minutes, second button, okay? This button here to put in hours and minutes. So you can go 60 times 2 and then press this button here. It looks like a degrees symbol, but it can also work for hours. And then 17 minutes. You press it again, and that will give us our answer here, which is just 137 kilometers. So you just need to be able to interpret that and know that it means kilometers in this example. So 137 kilometers is our answer. Now for part B, we've got to look at the what we're given. We're given a distance and we're given a time. So if we need to find its speed, we know that speed is distance divided by time. So you need to know your units of your rates in order to know what operation to do. Are you timesing or are you dividing by? So for here, we get 2,800 divided by 4 hours and 15 minutes. Now we know that 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour, but I'm still going to use my little shortcut. I'm going to go 2,800 and then I'm going to go 4 hours and 15 minutes. Now, if you don't have your calculator here, you can write your minutes part as 17 over 60 or 15 over 60 or something like that. You can use your online calculator to work out what that will be. It is easier to do with a handheld calculator, but you might not have that on you. So you just got to convert that 17 or the number of minutes to a fraction out of 60. Okay, so it says to the nearest kilometer, so we're going to round up to 659 kilometers per hour. Remember, it's a rate. We're going to write the per part for the speed. For question C here, a train travels at a distance of 770 kilometers at a speed of distance of 770 kilometers at a speed of 140 kilometers. How long does the journey take? Okay, so for this one, if we have, I want you to visualize, you've got kilometers, okay, and then dividing by kilometers per hour. Now, when we divide by a fraction, we know that we can flip and then change it to multiply. So this is the same as this. So we notice then that our kilometers will cancel and we'll just be left with hours. So if you want to know the amount of time and you have the distance and the speed, you do the distance divided by the speed and you'll get the time. I want you to think about how these units cancel as a way of remembering what operation. Am I multiplying or am I dividing? Hopefully the units will help you. So in this case, we're going to divide. So that we flip that fraction and the units cancel, we're left with time. So it's going to be 770 divided by 140. Again, we could write it as a fraction or just like that. So 770 divided by 140 gives me 5.5 hours. Now I know my units are hours because my speed was in kilometers per hour and my distance was in kilometers. So I'm left with hours at the end. All right, good luck with the questions today. Keep in touch if you need help with anything, and I'll see you in the next video.